Part 1. Welcome to the Gilded Cage. You wake up in the Topkapı Palace harem. The good news? You're surrounded by silk, satin, and rosewater. The bad news? You're also surrounded by 200 other concubines, all of whom may or may not want to outshine you, out-scheme you, or in some cases, outlive you. Your bed is a cushioned divan that looks like it was hand-stitched by blind angels using golden thread, because it probably was. You'd think this would feel luxurious. It doesn't. It feels like pressure. Constant, velvety pressure. The kind that sits on your chest while you pretend to breathe deeply. A bell rings. Not for prayer, for grooming. You have exactly 10 minutes to prepare your face to look naturally flawless, which is Ottoman for paint it like a Renaissance oil painting and smile like you enjoy it. There's rose oil for the skin, crushed pearls for your cheeks, and enough kohl eyeliner to write a love letter across your eyelids. Mascara? Invented by disappointment and applied with a twig. Privacy? Never heard of her. You share your chamber with women who may love you like sisters or plot your downfall like middle management villains. Gossip travels faster than letters, alliances form over pomegranate seeds, betrayals begin with a hairpin left in the wrong place. And the scent. Imagine a jasmine-scented fog bank mixed with anxiety, incense, and the eternal hope of catching the Sultan's eye. If Chanel ever released a perfume called Ambition and Claustrophobia, this would be it. You rise, smooth your embroidered caftan, hand-washed by a servant girl who's 12 but somehow already hates you, and head toward morning roll call, where senior eunuchs decide which concubines get summoned to the Sultan's attention. It's like a beauty pageant, except the prize is existential terror. No, you can't leave. Yes, someone is always watching, and your survival hinges on remaining fascinating, fragrant, and fertile. Welcome to your day in the Ottoman Imperial Harem, where your first waking breath is a power play, your smile is strategy, and your bed is softer than freedom, and it only gets weirder from here. Part 2, the bath, where politics happen naked. Welcome to the hammam, the steam-filled spa where imperial politics happen naked. You might assume the bathhouse is for hygiene. Technically, you'd be right, but here in the harem, it's also where alliances form, rivalries simmer along with your pores, and everything smells faintly of lavender, lemons, and passive aggression. The concubines file in like graceful ghosts wrapped in embroidered silk towels. You do the same, pretending this isn't the most intimidating nudity you've ever experienced. The senior women float through the marble chamber like swans, dangerous, territorial swans with better skin than you'll ever have. Attendants scrub you down with what feels like love, but is actually a loofah soaked in vengeance. Your skin tingles. Your dignity retreats. You try not to make eye contact while being exfoliated within an inch of your past life. You learn quickly. The bath is more than a bath. It's a surveillance chamber in disguise. Everyone's watching, not openly, but subtly. Who is sitting with whom? Who's whispering? Who's laughing a little too hard at the Valide Sultan's niece's joke? You don't speak much because you're new. Speaking too soon in the hammam is like trying to open a chess match by flipping the board. The veterans will either ignore you or quietly decide you need correcting, usually in the form of chore reassignment or social exile. That being said, the hammam is your first glimpse of the harem's soft power. You hear tales, always half-whispered, of women who rose not just by catching the Sultan's eye, but by knowing the right bath attendant, the right older concubine, the right story to share at the right steamy moment. It's also the only place in the palace where secrets accidentally fall out, usually between splashes of water and scented soaps. You learn which concubines are favored, which ones haven't been summoned in months, which eunuch allegedly dropped a love note. Scandalous. All this overheard while someone scrubs your elbows like they're angry at them. You leave the hammam pink, polished, and 12% more paranoid than when you entered. Congratulations. Your skin is radiant. Your mind is permanently fogged by heat, jasmine, and the politics of proximity. Part 3. The Eunuchs, your new best friends. If you thought the harem was all silk pillows and flutes playing in the distance, adorable really, but by now, You've learned it's less of a day spa and more of a slow-motion chess match where the pieces are beautiful, bored, and dangerously well-informed. And then there are the eunuchs. Specifically, the black eunuchs, high-ranking castrated guards who report directly to the Valide Sultan. They control who goes in and out of the harem, who gets summoned, who gets ignored, and occasionally who disappears without a trace and is never spoken of again. They don't smile much. They don't need to. Their presence alone is a career-ending gesture. You quickly learn, if you want to survive, better yet thrive, you don't flatter the Sultan. You befriend the eunuchs. Not with gifts, that's suspicious. Not with flirting, deeply awkward and wildly inappropriate. No, the trick is to be respectful, predictable, and above all, inoffensively useful. You ask for nothing. You're always ready when summoned. You never ever gossip about them, because news travels in this palace faster than the plague, and you really don't want your name attached to a sentence that ends with, "and then she was transferred to the laundry chamber." Meanwhile, among the concubines, relationships are complicated. You've made one tentative friend, a girl from Circassia who pretends to like embroidery, but is clearly plotting something long-term and ruthless. You also have an enemy, though you're not sure why. She stared at you too long during lute practice. You blinked. She hasn't spoken to you since. Everything is subtle. Compliments are weapons. Smiles are loaded. You begin to miss the emotional simplicity of your old village goat. But you learn. You learn how to interpret silence, how to stand just close enough to power without looking ambitious, how to thank a eunuch for handing you a letter as if he just handed you a divine scroll. And most of all, you learn that survival here isn't about being the prettiest or the most talented. It's about understanding how power moves in glances, in silence, in the way someone's name is spoken one day and not the next. Part 4. Your job. Looking harmless is a weapon. At first glance, your job as a concubine seems simple. Look beautiful, smile politely, and waft through the palace like an emotionally available ghost in silk slippers. But in reality, you're now expected to master the oldest imperial skill of them all, absorbing everything while appearing to absorb nothing. You are a sponge, a bejeweled, perfumed sponge who embroiders a suspicious number of tulips while memorizing who sits where, who glares at whom, and who got an extra apricot at breakfast. Subtle changes in fruit distribution? In this palace, it's practically a coup. Your daily schedule now includes hours of training that sounds like finishing school, but smells like political grooming. You're taught music, literature, poetry, Islamic law, Ottoman etiquette, and, if you're lucky, how not to pass out during dance lessons. The idea is to be beautiful, yes, but also charmingly clever without being threatening, like a decorative peacock that can quote Rumi and doesn't talk back. The real education, though, happens in between. You learn to notice how long it takes the Valide Sultan's tray to be cleared, and who clears it. You note which eunuch walks in just before bad news arrives. You memorize who's absent. You never ask why. You listen more than you speak. Actually, you don't speak unless someone 3 ranks above you asks you to. Even then, you keep it brief, ideally with a comment that's humble, insightful, and somehow flattering to them without sounding like you're trying. And while you sit there with your hands neatly folded over your embroidery, which may or may not be a misshapen dove, you are quietly archiving every interaction in your mental scroll. Alliances, slights, opportunities, names, especially names. You also begin to understand the unspoken ranking system. Who is favored, who is tolerated, who is 3 skip meals away from being reassigned to kitchen duty. You are currently somewhere between interesting newcomer and acceptable wall furnishing. Don't worry, that's better than it sounds. Because the truth is, in the Ottoman harem, looking harmless is one of the most dangerous things you can do, and you're starting to do it quite well. Part 5. The Rose. Everything is a test. There are 2 kinds of fear in the harem, the fear of being overlooked and the fear of being noticed. Today, you are flirting dangerously with the second. It begins innocently. You are handed a new robe. Not the usual subtle gray-blue cotton you've worn for weeks, but something far too bold. Silk, rose-colored, embroidered with tiny golden vines. You stare at it like it just proposed to you. From the Valide Sultan's steward, the servant girl mutters, eyes down. This could mean anything. Maybe you're being rewarded. Maybe you're being tested. Maybe it was meant for another concubine, and you're now walking into someone else's assassination plot with very soft sleeves. You put it on. It fits suspiciously well. As you pass through the harem corridors, the other women notice. Not openly, that would be beneath them, but with precisely timed pauses in conversation, raised brows, and one glance so sharp it could cut embroidery thread. You sit for morning recitation with your posture a little straighter. You pretend not to notice that you've been placed slightly closer to the front, not directly next to the favored ones, but not with the wallpaper girls either. Then there's the rose. Later that afternoon, a eunuch delivers a single pink rose to your quarters. Just one. No message, no explanation. You hold it like it might detonate. In palace code, this could mean anything. The Sultan might have noticed you, or someone wants it to look that way. Or maybe you're being set up for palace gossip, the deadliest game of telephone in Ottoman history. The safest move? Press the rose between the pages of your prayer book and tell absolutely no one, not even your shadow, especially not your shadow. She gossips. You go to bed that night draped in rose silk, feeling like a target inside a Valentine's Day card. Here in the harem, rising too quickly is suspicious, standing out is dangerous, but disappearing? That's worse. So you hold your posture, sip your sherbet, and prepare for whatever this robe and rose combination means, because it might be everything, or it might be nothing. And in this place, both are equally terrifying. Part 6. Dinner. Theater with lamb. Dinner in the harem isn't dinner, it's theater. Competitive, highly seasoned theater where everyone wears silk and pretends they're not sizing up their enemies between bites of stewed lamb. You enter the great dining chamber and take your seat. Not too close to the center, you haven't earned that, and not too far in the shadows, you're not invisible yet. The seating arrangement is an ever-shifting map of status. One week you're near the lute player who knows everyone's secrets. The next, you're next to a woman who hasn't spoken since 1572. The food arrives on trays carried by silent eunuchs, bowls of saffron rice, pomegranate-studded pilaf, grape leaves, sweet sherbets, and crystal glasses. All of it delicate, flavorful, and somehow emotionally threatening. No one rushes. That would be vulgar. You nibble slowly, gracefully, like someone who doesn't even really need food because she is nourished by poetry and intrigue alone. Conversations are hushed. Nobody laughs too loud unless they're trying to send a message. I'm confident enough to be cheerful in this snake pit. You nod politely. You smile just enough. You do not, under any circumstance, ask for more bread. Hunger is weakness. So is gluttony. Also, someone might be watching to see if you take 2 figs. You catch eyes with another concubine across the table. She's new, or maybe she's old and reborn with a better tailor. Either way, her earrings are too large for her rank, and her smile is the kind that comes with long-term plans. You break eye contact before she decides you're a problem. Then comes the part no one ever admits, watching the eunuch enter. When he steps in, the air shifts. If he heads your way, a letter, an invitation, anything, you remain perfectly calm on the outside. Internally, your soul may or may not be breakdancing. If he doesn't, you nod as if this suits you just fine. You didn't want to be summoned anyway. You're busy chewing suspiciously decorative grapes. By the end of dinner, nothing has happened and everything has happened. Power has changed hands in eyebrow lifts and polite laughter. You rise, you bow, you leave. Still hungry, still smiling. Still in the game. Part 7. Night. No one sleeps. You try to sleep, which is adorable because the harem at night is like a theater stage after the performance. Dim, hushed, but still full of tension. The lanterns flicker low, the fountains murmur outside, and you lie awake wondering if tonight is the night a eunuch knocks on your door. You know the rules. The Sultan chooses in secret, sometimes with intent, sometimes impulsively, sometimes because he saw a girl drop a fig with particular elegance. There is no pattern, no logic, just anticipation and silk-robed anxiety. Around you, the other women pretend to sleep. One breathes too loudly. Another keeps adjusting her veil like it might protect her from bad news or good luck. Everyone's pretending not to care. You care. Of course you care. You were handed a rose 2 days ago, and you're still trying to decide if it was a compliment or a warning. Maybe both. Maybe neither. Palace communication is like poetry written by a committee of spies. Suddenly, soft footsteps, a door creaks. Somewhere, a eunuch whispers a name, not yours. You exhale. Relief, disappointment, a cocktail of both served in an emotional silver goblet. You roll over and close your eyes, only for your mind to start staging imaginary conversations with the Sultan in 3 different languages, all of which you're still learning. You dream, but not of home. That place is blurry now. You dream of the woman across the dining table, with the earrings too large for her rank. She smiles at you in the dream. You wake up certain she wants you demoted, exiled, or at the very least stuck in lute lessons for the rest of your natural life. You dab rose water under your nose and pretend it's calming. It isn't, but it smells like control. At some point, just before dawn, you finally drift off. You've survived another night without being chosen, without being erased, without accidentally looking too eager or too dull. And in the palace of Topkapı, that's not sleep. That's a diplomatic victory. Part 8, The Summons. Everything changes. One morning, just before the call to prayer, you're summoned. Not by a eunuch, not by a servant, but by a letter, sealed in imperial blue wax, delivered with no explanation, just a glance that suggests everything is about to change. You sit alone as you read it. The script is elegant. The offer is clear. You are to be elevated. Moved to more private quarters, closer to the Sultan, closer to the core of the palace, and further from anonymity. It is, on paper, a promotion. But here in the harem, a promotion is just a prettier word for exposure. You step into the world of real influence, politics, intrigue, the possibility of bearing a royal child, of becoming a consort, maybe even the Sultan's favorite. It's what some women dream of. It's also where women vanish. You have until sunset to reply. So you walk the gardens, the ones where you used to hide in the shadow of elder concubines. Now they look smaller. The fountains still whisper. The tulips still bloom like delicate secrets. But the air feels different. It's your name they speak now. You think of home, blurry now. You think of the other girls, the ones who never rose, the ones who rose too fast, the ones who were clever but not clever enough. And you think of yourself, not the version trained in etiquette and poetry, but the girl who arrived with her old name tucked somewhere between her ribs. That night, you dress carefully. One final choice. You walk past the curtains, the silken borders that separate the known from the unknown. And in the stillness, you answer. Maybe you rise. Maybe you vanish. Maybe your name is written into palace history. Or maybe it's whispered one last time and folded away like a silk scarf in a drawer no one opens anymore. But one thing is certain. You are not just a decoration. You are a strategist in satin, a survivor in perfume, a masterclass in restraint. And for one full day, and maybe longer, you walked the tightrope between power and peril without falling.